or have we just lost ourselves in the stereotypes of this world? To talk about all this, I would like to introduce Mr. Hari Nair, founder and CEO of HolidayIQ.com. I would now request one of our volunteers to present sir with a token of appreciation. Hari left his 15-year international management consulting career and started HolidayIQ.com. He brought his professional management in India's first travel community. Today, Hari is a sought-after speaker on online travel in major domestic and international travel trade events. His interests include traveling, reading, and water sports. He was also a one-time member of the World Future Society. Sir, now we would like you to share your insights on the theme for today's session.
Thanks. Can I use it? Thanks guys for having me here. Sorry, was that too loud? Thanks for having me here. Okay. Before we start, a couple of rules of the game, right? So I really don't want to give a speech. I pretty badly give a speech. So what I'm going to do is really try and say a few things for 5-10 minutes, then we're going to have a conversation. Does that work? What that means is I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, you're going to ask me a bunch of questions, we're going to have a chat and see what comes out of that. Works? Okay. So for me to do that, it's good to know who we have here, right? So how many of you are from within one of the Xavier institutions where you're studying? All of you are. So there's nobody from outside here, right? Okay, great. I was given to understand that there might be a few people from outside, and that tends to make it a little bit more interesting in the sense that it's, it tends to be heterogeneous, right? So you don't quite know exactly what is there. Good. So now, HRM, right? How many of you are doing HR? Okay, almost all of you are doing HR. So who are the unlucky guys who are doing business? Rural management, yeah, rural management. Okay, and anybody at all who's doing classic business?
Business finance.
Business finance. Who are these? Unlucky souls, actually, I must say. I'm a finance guy myself. Okay. Okay, good. So I think we've got a huge strength in the HR guys, right? So fair enough. Actually, it doesn't change anything. It's just for me to know what you guys are doing. Okay. Before we get into this thing of passion, let me just ask you let's just start by asking ourselves what some of our interests are, right? Because that obviously connects to this whole story of passion and so on. So we'll go back and connect that to this thing. So I'd like to actually just hear from all of you, or some of you at least, some of your interests. And I'm not looking for like this passion thing, just interests. What do we like? Would you like to go?
Sir, I love cycling. So I was so much into it that I left my recently paid engineering job to get into a self-fit of cycling.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
So I used to work on aircraft, so I started working on cycles.
Ah.
That was the change.
Interesting. Anybody else? None of you have any interest? Well, otherwise I'll have to pick on people. Any interest whatsoever? Yeah. You're interested in crafting. Crafting what? I mean, just give me a sense of paper crafting. Okay, interesting. And so what do you do with that? I mean, just origami and stuff like that, right? Right. Okay. And what's the course that you do? I don't know, here. What course are you doing? HR, right? Got it. Anybody else? Food and traveling, awesome. Yeah, sounds close to home.
Food is eating as well as cooking together.
Oh, okay.
Traveling has actually developed in the last few years because before that I used to stay at home. Once I came out of home, then I don't want to return back anymore.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Most kids, when they leave home, start to put on weight. Mothers get damn hassled by this, right? They can't for the life of them understand how kids went out, had bad food, and actually put on weight, right? My wife has the same. So yeah, interesting. Food and travel. Okay. Anybody else? Psychology and neuroscience. Very interesting. So tell me about that interest. I mean, what does that interest mean?
Normally, I talk a lot, converse a lot about consciousness, means relate it to science if it is possible or not. So that kind of discussion and maybe YouTube videos and a lot of stuff related to that hypothesis.
So you ask questions like, do I really exist? No, it's a good question actually. Yeah? Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. No, that's interesting. One last one. Anybody else? Yeah. Creative writing. Oh, awesome. Right. What do you write? Poems and short stories. Awesome. So who's your favorite poet? Oh, brilliant. What does she know? Is it? And which language do you write in? English? Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. And have you published? Mm-hmm. Got it. Entertainment of friends and family. But you want to keep all of us away from that. It's easier to do that. I know. Right. It's just a hobby. It's just for you. Right. Okay, you know what? We'll do one more. Anybody else? Anybody who's got an interest that's actually different from anything that we've just discussed? Yeah.
I like playing badminton. At one point of time, I was very little kid. I used to.
Almost there, but that's fine.
When I was a little kid, I aspired to become a badminton player. I was district then. At that time, but due to some health issues, I couldn't make it far enough. But still, I follow it. Even in college, I like to play badminton.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. This is awesome, right? So so what's interesting is, you guys are all doing HRM, and you've got a bunch of interests that, as far as I can make out, are very interesting, right? Why didn't you pursue that? I mean, one case was clear, right? You couldn't pursue badminton because there was a health thing. But why not pursue poetry for life? Why not pursue what you like, neurosciences, for life, and so on? So that question is the question very often that starts us on this path of figuring out what I'm going to talk about today, right? About passion and how to make passion. So I'm not here to suggest an answer. I'm just here to say that question often is a very interesting question to ask ourselves, right? We've got certain interests. We started off with those interests, then we go off, and you just started, into the world of work through doing a professional program, and then you it will start to go from there more and more into or away from your interest. It's almost certain that it will happen, right? It happens to everybody. So the question often is, why do we all tend to move away from our interests? And that's, I can only answer it from my perspective, right? Because I don't think it's fair or even reasonable to expect to know what it is for other people, but I can certainly say from my experience. For me, I'll tell you my story, right? So I'm interested in all kinds of things. In fact, one of my big problems is that I'm interested in too many things, right? It almost made me unemployable. It actually makes me unemployable. Actually, it's not very, it makes me unemployable. Because I'm interested in origami, I'm interested in neurosciences. I'm actually interested in everything that you guys said. And if somebody were to come up with something that I haven't heard of before, then I'm likely to find that interesting and want to actually get into that and figure it out along with that person, right? The problem with that is that when you get into work, that's exactly the wrong thing. Because people want you to, right, fit into a slot, right? And the slot often is a fixed thing of what you want to do and all of that. So it tends to become a bit complicated when you have a lot of interest. So I had to find out something to do with myself in life that that kind of adapted to some amount of interest. So what did I do? I went and did the absolute worst thing that a human being can do, right? Which is actually I did something that actually had absolutely nothing to do with even one of my interests. And that's difficult because I'm interested in a lot of things, right? I went and became a chartered accountant. And you know what I did and what happened to me because of that? I got interested in accounting. Actually, I must tell you, accounting is actually great philosophy. All of you must be doing accounting, right? Double entry bookkeeping. Double entry bookkeeping has, if you just scratch the surface, is actually one of those great philosophies of life. I'm not going to bore you with that, but think about it sometime. It's actually quite an interesting way of thinking about life. But anyway, leave that aside. So I went and did something very narrow, right? Something has happened to them in travel, right? So in this case, with Anavila, travel because she used to go to the remotest parts of India to find weavers working on sari to bring that back to center stage was her big thing in life, right? So a few months ago, I got the chance, and I go fairly often now, so chance to go to Mumbai because I was meeting a very interesting person. Part of my work. 15 days ago, I was in Sikkim. How many of you have been in Sikkim? Okay, that's not bad. So you know that Sikkim is a beautiful place, right? So Sikkim has 4 districts. One of the districts, South Sikkim, actually has no tourism. The other 3 actually have a lot of tourism. So I was invited by a group of people who are the big people in South Sikkim to come and help them think through how South Sikkim can become big in tourism. And I got the opportunity, very scary opportunity actually, to address 7,000 local people in a public gathering. There were 2 speakers. There was me, and there was the Chief Minister of Sikkim. Right? So not an easy thing to sort of be faced with, right? The locals there, so they know Nepali, I don't know a single word of Nepali. And so you got to do that. It was fun, did something, I think it went quite well. Essentially the idea was to talk to them about how tourism can become a big source of change for that district, South Sikkim. Yesterday, in fact, you guys had actually invited me for a session, I think this morning, and I couldn't come for that because I couldn't take a flight out yesterday from Bangalore. The reason I couldn't do that was because I had set up a meeting with one of the largest conglomerates looking at investing in India, Chinese conglomerates looking at investing in India. So they were coming to India, and they've been in India for the last few days, and they had come to Bangalore and they were meeting us to understand how we saw tourism in India and what's going to happen in the next 3 years and 5 years, and how they should think about their investment strategy in various fields, but they talk to us about tourism, right? They came. Today, I'm in the eastern part of India, talking to you guys about what it means to chase a dream in tourism. So what has happened to me is that I think I've been able to craft a reality of work that allows me to meet a lot of people and travel around a lot of places as part of my work. I have actually had to craft my role and my company's vision and what it does in some ways to reflect my passion and my need to travel and see. And the more I do that, I find that it adds value to the company that I have. So that's how I have handled it, right? You're right, that actually passion can actually make it difficult for you to indulge in your passion because you're doing something else. So the answer that I found was, can you therefore reframe it in a way that you can actually go and indulge in that passion? So if you like origami and you start, you think you want to make India's largest company that does origami, I guarantee you that you'll probably not spend much time doing origami, right? Because of the company. So you got to think about that problem, and I think it's a very real thing, and how can you do that? I don't have a very good answer, but I know from my personal experience, it's possible to. Possible to. You can, in my opinion, convert passion to a business. Let me go the other way. Why is it interesting to have passion in your business? Your passion in your business. One was, isn't indulging in your passion as a business bad for your passion? That was your question. How about you flip it the other way? If you do business and you do business in an area which you're passionate about, does it actually help you in your business? That's another way of thinking about it, right? And I can tell you from my experience, that is incredibly helpful. Because of one reason. Can you guess?
We can make it, you know how to make it profitable.
You know how to make it?
Yes, we'll try our best to make it profitable.
Yeah, you try your best to make it profitable.
And we know the in and outs of our passion, which is like what makes us passionate about it, and we can work on it. Because we can even show the remaining world that makes us passionate.
Correct. Correct. Anybody else?
I love for the work.
Sorry?
I love for the work which we are doing.
Right. And therefore?
Therefore, that is
Therefore, that would lead to more gaining. If I'm interested in something, if I'm enjoying the work, I'll spend more time in it. I'll put more effort in it. Hence, in a way, I will be adding more value to the business which I'm in.
Got it. Yeah. Very true.
So at the end of the day, you'll be satisfied.
You'll be satisfied. Yeah. Yeah. But how does your satisfaction help the business?
So because the more you are satisfied, the more you will work for that particular thing, or else you will start looking out for it.
Okay. Anybody else?
no matter how many times you fail, you keep going on and on.
That is the answer. That is the answer. And I think all the others are also correct answers. I'm not saying that, but that is the real answer. Because I'll tell you one big thing that at least entrepreneurship has. You will have to face innumerable instances of total failure. And I can tell you, not just total failure. Entrepreneurship is about 99 times out of 100 being rejected. It's the most fun way to learn rejection. Right? You have a new product, everybody will say you're an idiot. By definition. You have a new service, you have a new idea, you have a new thought, new way of doing something. That's it. 99% rejection. And the only thing that I think, at least for me, that keeps you, one of the things that can keep you coming back the next day after getting that rejection is passion. You want to do it. Like you said, satisfaction. Right? So if I have the satisfaction, I know that I'm pursuing something that is meaningful and valuable to me. I get up and come back the next day. I can tell you, I've actually now realized that entrepreneurship has actually two secrets. It's giving you distilled insight, so to speak. Two secrets. Two things that I think differentiates, in my opinion, great people who are able to consistently make success. And I'm not talking about that one-time flash where suddenly something happened, but consistently make success. Two things. One is passion, in terms of your ability to be interested in something and therefore, come back. And the second, can you guess what the second is? Can anybody guess what the second is? I guarantee it will be different from what you're thinking. Luck. Absolutely, luck. That is true. But then that's what it is. We all are. We have a certain amount of luck. Although I am increasingly of the opinion that you make your own luck, but that's a separate point. Anything else? Anybody else want to try? You know what? Sorry.
You need to believe in your idea.
Believe in the idea. Yes, believe in the idea. But there's one thing, and at your age you won't recognize it, which I can almost by definition tell you that, by and large, few people mind. You know what that second thing is? And why it's important to know now. Because you can only do something about it now. But it'll be relevant to you 10 years later, 15 years later. You know what that is? Health. Your ability to succeed is not determined by the education you have, the money you have, the contacts you have, however many you have on LinkedIn. None of that is determined, I think, by two things: passion and health. And the reason I mention that here is because, from this time, for the next 10 years, is when I guarantee you that you will neglect your health. You already have started. You don't realize it, but you have already started. Right? From childhood, when you were playing games, how many of you are actively playing now? Nobody, right? Not nobody, but very few, right? Your classes, your exams, your tests, you have this, you have interviews, you have stuff like this, you have all this kind of stuff going on. Where do I have the time to go to the gym or to go play a game, right? When was the last time you played? Bad idea. Do it. Because only that and passion will get you everything else. From my personal take on it. So we've got to be. So passion has a role in making your business or your entrepreneurship or your activity that you do in life more successful than otherwise, because it enables you to handle rejection. It enables you to handle all of the failures that you will have, because you will have. So then why don't more of us get after stuff we love? Coming back to the original question, in my mind, why don't more of us go after that? Because every time when my peer group and all of that, I ask people, what are you interested in? And everybody has a bunch of things that they're interested in. Some of them have things that they're really interested in, and a few have things that they almost know that they're passionate about. But why don't they do it? Sorry?
Success is much lower. Like you have to be much more hard work and effort compared to a regular work where you can succeed competitively.
Right.
So long to expectations that people have around life.
Yeah. So that's for those of you who didn't hear it, right? The first one was, it is easy to succeed in something more conventional or more clear to see as a path than something that is not so clear. I think that was your point. Very good point. An interesting point, saying that we do things that reflect what other people want us to do, or what is important for other people, than what we want.
Lack of courage that we can earn a livelihood.
Yeah, lack of courage, fear of failing.
It's a problem of inertia.
Problem of inertia. Don't want to.
You always want to be in your own comfort zone.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable is what everybody enjoys.
Right. So you don't want to get into a discomfort area, and therefore you stick to what you do. Yeah.
Not so strong passion.
Not so strong passion. Yeah. So it's not really a passion in that sense. Yeah. I was in IIM Ranchi, I think a few weeks ago, and we had this conversation about what is a passion. Yeah, I think that was an interesting point, because lots of people, Yeah. Yeah, so to know that, I was chicken. I was just scared. I knew it. I was just chicken. That's why I'm telling you guys. It's easy to say this now, but because yeah, so these are big words, right? Passion and things like that. But what I'm saying is that I remember from very early enjoying going to different places, recognizing seeing new things, learning new stuff, being able to connect the dots from here to there, very interesting. And that continued throughout as you were doing various things. So why did it take me 15 years? Partly because nobody told me you likely do it. Not necessary, and I'll tell you why that is not necessary. It's because you also have family. Life is that's why I said this whole double entry bookkeeping thing is a very interesting thing. When you grow older, you have few things that you don't have today. For example, a family. Family means children, children means their education, their life, their In fact, I keep telling people, because I have a lot of people now I know who are mid-career professionals looking to get into entrepreneurship. That's another completely different conversation. And I tell them that there is only one constraint to doing mid-career entrepreneurship. You must do your entrepreneurship before your child turns 5 years to 6 years of age. You know why I say that? In my experience. Because after they cross a certain age, it will take you 5-6 years to get your business somewhere. I mean, unless you are and in India by and large it doesn't happen. Right? So 6-7 years, whatever happens, you'll get somewhere. Most likely you get nowhere. But because it will take 10 years, India is very slow. What that means is if the child is 5 years old, by the time you get somewhere, child will be 10, 11 years old, teens. You will get one massive extra pressure point in your life when your child turns to teens and they don't know what their father or mother is doing. They have no clue, right? They're doing something. If I go and tell my teenage child that I'm doing passion, and all that, So I think that's probably the reason that it's easier to do before than later. In fact, my strong advice nowadays is please start early with the certainty, 100% certainty that you will fail. Have you fallen ever in love? Seriously, you have ever fallen in love with someone? You have. Is it possible to do that part-time? Difficult. Same thing in entrepreneurship. Truly difficult to do. What I mean by that is that I think there's a point in what you're saying, and I think it's an important point, is that can you manage entrepreneurship in a way where you have some support from something else that you're doing, and then you work on that, you now have the journey left to find your passion, which is actually a wonderful place to be. And at the age that you guys are in, I'd actually be surprised if you had a passion, right? Because you've not had a lot of time, in a relative sense, to find that possibilities of passion. So, it's a great journey. So let me just connect this back to now. Yeah, if you lose interest, then it's a big problem. So then the question really often is that, then is that your passion? I think in my mind, one of the questions, I have that same issue, right? A lot of people ask me, if you love travel and you have to run a company and start it and take it somewhere, can you travel so much? That's a good question actually. I'm just going to give you It's a very good question, and I don't know the definitive answer to it, but I can tell you from my experience. Okay? Because after all, I want to travel, right? I like travel, I like going to places, that's my interest. I want to do something with tourism. Yeah. Kajol. Anavila, so have you seen them in photographs wearing a sari? Yeah? Anavila Mishra made those saris. She is the designer in Mumbai, famous for linen saris that top actresses in India wear. Okay, she's actually single-handedly brought sari back, and particularly linen saris back. So essentially, with a lot of interesting work. I was with her 2-3 months ago to shoot an episode of something I do called Conversations with Hari. Any of you ever had a chance to see that? Put it the other way. If you do business and you do business in an area which you're passionate about, does it actually help you in your business? That's another way of thinking about it, right? And I can tell you from my experience that it's incredibly helpful. Because of one reason, working on sari, to bring that back to center stage was her big thing in life, right? So a few months ago, I got the chance, I go fairly often now, got the chance to go to Mumbai because I was meeting a very interesting person. Part of my work. 15 days ago, I was in Sikkim. And I got the opportunity, very scary opportunity actually, to address 7,000 local people in a public gathering. There were 2 speakers. There was me, and there was the Chief Minister of Sikkim. Fun, did something, I think it went quite well. Essentially, the idea was to talk to them about how tourism can become a big source of change for that district, South Sikkim. Yesterday, in fact, you guys had actually invited me for a session, I think this morning, and I couldn't come for that because I did that. Then I came out into the workforce, then I had to figure out what to do. But there I got a bit smart. So my first job, I left accounting the day I finished accounting, and my first job was I went and stood in lines in TCS for interviews and became a coder, a developer. My first job. And that taught me that you can actually go into all kinds of things, right? There's nothing that actually stops you, guide, and you know absolutely nothing about coding. Which is okay because most people who come to TCS actually have no idea about coding, which they expect them, so which is fine. But I went in and did that. So then from there I went to consulting, and I spent 15 years in consulting. And the reason I did consulting for 15 years was because among all the jobs available, it was the one job that had some potential to allow you to explore a few things, right? Till I became a partner. The world's most boring job again, I must tell you. To become a partner in a professional services firm is actually to lose all of the interest that you have, because then it becomes an administrative job. How many people under you did what is the billing, internal politics between some country abroad which controls the business here and so on and so forth and all of that. So it's actually quite uninteresting. So I spent 15 years in a consulting career. Did lots of interesting work. My specialty was actually projects. So what I did was help figure out what it took to make large projects happen in India, particularly infrastructure projects, right? So the very large road projects, privatization of some of the very large infrastructure projects. So the nice airports that you see in Delhi and Bombay, I had a small role to play with that in terms of actually getting those airports privatized. I was the partner in charge of that as part of KPMG's team, advising the government of India and actually helping privatize that and make it happen. So those are all exciting things, different things and so on and so forth. Till I got to the point where I said, I need to go back to something even bigger and more interesting than I was doing. And that's when I said, what is my passion? And went and discovered that actually all of these interests that I have can go back into my core passion, which is travel. So one of the beauties of travel is that you can pretty much fit anything into it. right? I mean, anything, right? Just about anything can come into the larger ambit called travel. And so that became my area, and for the last 10 plus years I've been working on that area. The passion in that, right, is for me, what I find most interesting in that is the opportunity to bring tourism as a central thing in India, which can actually make a difference. Nobody thinks of tourism in quite, we occasionally go for a trip and, all of that. Tourism industry is not an industry. How many of you ever thought of going into a job in the tourism industry? Most people don't. They might occasionally think about airlines, they might think about hospitality, but by and large, they don't think about tourism. So my thing in life is to actually get people into tourism and make tourism into a big thing where it actually makes a big difference to India's economy. Right? Sounds like a grand thing. But to the extent that I can do that, I'm actually pulling away at it. Right? So that's my passion. That's what I do. There's a novel called, have you heard of a character called Don Quixote? Don Quixote is called. But have you come across that? It's a European novel. It's a very famous novel because the character, you've seen these windmills, right? The windmills. So this guy used to go across Europe and used to see those windmills and used to try fighting the windmills. It's basically saying that tilting at windmills means trying to do some idiotic or absurd thing that will unlikely to get you results. Is the thing. So sometimes when I think about it myself, trying to bring tourism into the center of India sounds like a little bit of a tilting and windmills kind of a thing. That often is passion. That it's not entirely reasonable. You can't say that, it sounds like a reasonable thing to do. If it's reasonable to do it, probably not passion. Does anybody here think they have a passion in life? Yeah, growing up in a risk-averse society. Very true. Very true. So anyway, I'll come back to that. It's very interesting. So what I have found out is that there is a single word for all of the things that we said. And they're all right, all correct. Every one of the things that we just said, I think, are all correct. And therefore, what is that one word? And that one word I have come to the conclusion is fear. It's not fear about something, just fear. If it was fear about something, it's actually quite easy. So you can address that. It's not about anything, it's just fear. So one of the things I have used, see, for me it was a bit difficult, and I must tell you why it was difficult, that I had a successful career. It's actually much tougher to do that, because what happens is you've already got somewhere by the normal definitions of what you said, right? By normal definitions of success, you've already got somewhere. To walk off from that cliff is actually quite tough. Because, and I'll tell you something very interesting. In consulting, management consulting, do you know what do people consider to be the yardstick of success? When two consultants talk to each other in management consulting, how do they gauge that I am better or that person is better? Can anybody guess here? In consulting, how do you make out that you're doing really well? Anybody? Sorry? Solving? Serving people. Serving people, yeah. But how do you know that, like you're in consulting, there are 5 of you. How do you know that, listen, I'm doing better than that person? We all constantly judge, right? How do you know that you're doing better than the other person? By the number of clients that you have, the size of the business that you do, right? What else? How expensive the suit is, we're getting closer. how big your car is, all of that. But in consulting, it's very specific. It's none of that. Because the problem in consulting is that after a point, you can afford the world's best suits and the fairly fancy cars. Then it's very difficult to differentiate. Because once you got to a BMW, you can go up and make it a cabriolet or something. But other than that, what do you do? Because in India, if you buy a Lamborghini, you pretty much park it and go home, right? And stay at home. So then how do you, and I'll tell you what it is. Frequent flyer points. The most important measure of success in consulting among consultants, they'll never tell you this, okay, you have to get into consulting and then you spend the 2-3 few years inside that, then you will learn this, that you will start to judge each other on frequent flyer points. There's a movie like that. I don't know English movie. Up in the air. I think Clooney, right? Clooney, yeah. So I haven't seen the movie, but I can so understand that idea because, and then suddenly after some time I can tell you that you get obsessed by this. In all your conversations, in some small way, you slip it in. If you're, I was, I had a lot of points, very happy, So the point I'm making is, what happens is that when you walk off from an step, whatever is that conventional, you lose that. So when I left consulting and went into entrepreneurship, the most interesting thing that happened to me in the first 3 months, that I stopped flying, right? Obviously, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're small, listening, starting, you can't even really take a train, forget about flying, right? And you therefore avoid unnecessary costs and you're very careful. You have to be. Jet Airways, which at that time was the number one airline and you had a lot of points and so on. They sent me a letter. They sent me 3 letters. In the first 3 or 4 months after I stopped flying or mostly reduced flying. Basically, to communicate to me that, you're not doing enough, right? But it was a very sweet letter. It almost gave me the impression that they love me, right? And I'm doing something really nice till it got to the last sentence when you said, you've fallen, this tire has come down to this tire. And, 3 months before that, when I was in consulting, if I had actually felt that, I got that letter, I would have been really unhappy and devastated by it. But, so what I'm saying is, it is these kind of things that become very difficult to handle because there are social things around you that is very difficult to handle because that is what you call success. So fear. So fear is your issue. Yeah. Does passion change with time? So you have an answer? You're asking. Okay. So I don't know the answer to that, honestly. Like most things, I don't have the answer to that. But I can tell you what I have learned is that my reading is. So for me, in the last so many years, the love for travel has not come down. What that means is, yesterday, for that meeting yesterday that I was telling you about, I actually had to prepare 4 days before that, and we were all sitting very late at night, and I've not really slept too well in the last 4 days. But I'm very happy to be here. And that's equally about wanting to come here, and tomorrow I'm going off to Puri and Konark, and I've got certain things in my mind that I want to explore, and I wanted to meet you guys, and I wanted to talk about this, and I wanted to see what the Xavier. So I'm saying that it suggests to me that there are some passions that can probably last for a long time. My suspicion is that one is lucky to find it.
So, if passion changes, so will it be called a passion or it becomes an interest?
That's a business school question. So the definition question, it's a good question. It's a good question because this is exactly what I was telling you, right? In I Am Ranchi, we were talking about it, saying, how many. So then, of course, the problem with that is then we'll get into a thing. Somebody will come up with a quantitative model, and then they'll say that if it crosses a certain 4 years and 8.3 months is when it actually becomes passionate, and then it's actually this thing. So then you lose the whole point, right? But it's a good question. It's a good question because I think if you're, what I'm saying is I'm not so sure it's important to get the definition right. But what is important, I think, is if you're going to apply your life to something, then it better hold your interest. Right? It better be something that you're really deeply interested in because if you're not, it's okay. See, nobody says here that everybody doing something in life should always do only what they're passionate about. I don't think that's a discussion here. Is it possible? Is it worth doing? Is it valuable doing? It's the question we're discussing. And I'm saying the answer to all of that from my experience is yes. But then I know also that I spent 15 years before that doing what I liked, but wasn't this overriding passion. 5 years later, will I say that, you know what, this is it, one day I stop, I don't want to do any more travel in life? Can happen, I don't know. But as of now, seems like, it will continue for some time and so on. So, what I'm saying is, the answer to that also comes from, possibly the question itself comes from, possibly, from fear. Because one of the big things I think we have problem with is the fear of the unknown. Fear of the fear. Fear of the unknown. Saying, yeah, something will come along that changes what I've got in my head and then what will I do? I don't know. You do something. As long as you have that confidence that you will do something, I think you'll be fine. I think, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I see it, right? Yeah. So I think let's work on the fear thing. So, and then, and I keep going back to that conversation. So we were discussing about why are we scared? Why are we scared? What is it that we are scared of? Failure. But actually, why are we scared of failure? People will say that you are a failure, right? More than you are not really scared of failure, you are quite okay. But you think everybody else will tell you that you are a failure, which is a hell of a problem, right? So we talked about that, and then one of the things that came along was financial failure, right? Hey, come on, I need a job, I need to, ABCD, right? Which is very interesting, actually. How many people in this room have a home that they will inherit from their parents? You know the answer? I know the answer actually. Is everybody. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. And the reason I ask you that question is, I actually think this is the important point, right? If you had asked the same question to a group of people in a business school, but maybe not in such a plush setting, but in an ordinary business school, 25 years ago, this number would have been maybe less than half the class. Financial risk had some meaning then. It has no meaning today for all. No financial risk. What financial risk here? Yes, you might not be able to afford the car that you're looking for, the number of holidays that you're looking for, etc. That's not financial risk. Right? Clearly that's not financial risk. I'm just taking this as an example, just to tell you that, in my opinion, in India today, for most people of a certain education, background, and in a context, there is no financial risk. Do we agree? We do, right? There is no financial risk. Fact of the matter. Then why don't we take it? In fact, we take the biggest risk of them all. I know lots of people who get into a job market and in the first 3 years buy a fancy house and they're dead. They've got an EMI for the rest of their lives. Then of course they buy a car, then they kill themselves anyway. So what I'm trying to say is that the fear comes out of some constructs that we have in our head, which is easy to get over because actually there is nothing much to fear. Which is my only point. I have come to the conclusion that you can indulge in your passion. If poetry is your passion, if origami is your passion, if cycling is your passion, if neurosciences are your passion, if badminton is your passion, I actually believe with complete conviction that you should start on that today. That everything else is just the refusal to, I'm not saying it's a passion, I'm saying if it is a passion. If it is an interest, if it's something passing, fancy, no problem. But if you truly want to try it, go ahead and try it. Just do it. There's absolutely